Dave Scott, Hub Media. I'm with Lill. Lill, it's been a little bit since I've seen you. We've got so much to talk about. Let me introduce you. Team Lead, Mental Health Promotions Education, Canadian Mental Health, Brant-Haldimand-Norfolk Association. Thanks for taking the time today.
Always a pleasure, Dave. Always.
I'm going to start throwing questions at you because this is... I recently discovered, then I didn't know this, because you and I spend a lot of time talking about anxiety. We know a lot of folks that struggle with it, and we always talk about ways that we can help them. I didn't realize that anxiety and anger were so well connected. And I think in the broad sense of the country, we kind of saw that recently all over the place. Can you talk a little bit about what that connection is and how it happens?
Well, sure. Part of anxiety is, feeling like you're not having control over your environment, your situation, things like that. And, when you have that perception of loss of control, you're going to get frustrated, irritable, increasingly anxious. And that can lead to anger as well. I mean, we're seeing that. We're seeing that today.
Is that sort of the normal... I mean, what I found was kind of disheartening was that the anger that we saw on a larger scale, it affected everyone. I'm not going to say equally, but it seemed to be pretty equal, like you had talked about. And maybe we could talk for a minute about, when you feel that way in any situation, how can you sort of resolve it? What are some of the steps you could take to sort of defuse your own anger as it may be?
For sure. Anxiety is challenging. It certainly is. But the best way to deal with our anxiety is know that we're having those irrational thoughts that, that maybe is not as difficult or as challenging as we're perceiving it to be. But definitely, take control of your thoughts and get a handle on those thoughts and notice your thoughts when you're becoming anxious and it's leading to the symptoms that anxiety causes, and use different outlets to channel that anxiety. We talk about exercise all the time. Go for a walk, take that run, notice and challenge those thoughts as well, because anxiety is all about those thoughts that are entering your mind. And often those thoughts, that go to extreme anxiety are irrational thoughts, but very real to the people that are, feeling these thoughts, right? Or experiencing these thoughts. So again, we need to notice those thoughts when they're creeping into our minds, challenge those thoughts, and be aware of those thoughts that perhaps, they're getting a little bit out of control, and bring yourself back. But again, have those outlets and, be aware of what's happening so that your anxiety doesn't spiral.
Wow. And it's just, like you said, it's as simple as, 10, 15 minutes a day of exercise.
Absolutely.
And it helps relieve some mindfulness, some meditation, any of those things. And I understand, in being an athlete who loves to run all the time, it's a long process to build to that point. But once you get there, folks, what a difference on your daily life. You can sort of cross new bridges all the time. Another question I have is, with the pandemic somewhat winding down, and it's been a couple of years, I felt very reflective. I lost a friend early in the pandemic. Recently, I've been feeling really, I sort of rediscovering that emotion. This friend I lost before there was any vaccines. Can that, I didn't feel angry, but I think maybe more disappointed that as a society, we're kind of forgetting about those folks that have passed. And, that's, do you still have to go through the stages of grief, even though it's been 2 years? Do you think that's part of the process I'm going through?
Yes, absolutely. And you're not alone. I think that, people who have lost family members or other loved ones to COVID haven't even really processed the grief yet, okay? Because then we couldn't go to the funerals, we couldn't go to the visitations, and then we had to deal with our own survival and the lockdowns and the restrictions. I can safely say that people haven't processed their grief yet. So you're going to see, when they're able to process their grief, that it's going to hit them all at once. So, yeah.
How are you guys finding it? I know that you're extremely busy with the area that you guys cover. Are you seeing surges in one of the other questions I want to ask because of this pandemic? Are you seeing surges in areas like addiction? Are people coming more and more to you guys now for more help because maybe the doors are starting to open up a little bit more?
Yes, for sure. CMHA National recently released another poll, a more recent poll, and they've been doing, this will be, I believe, their fourth poll, and it's about the mental health of Canadians during COVID. And this recent poll showed that there was a 40% increase in people seeking help for their mental health. So definitely there's that impact there, but we're happy to see that people are reaching out, right? Instead of just kind of, living with this. So that is one good thing, that yes, there is an increase in access to mental health services. Mental health has certainly been impacted, but people are accessing mental health services. So that's kind of good. I'll be happy when, there's no more work for me to do and no one needs mental health services anymore. But fortunately, people are reaching out because they're struggling.
Has the pandemic made it more acceptable?
Yes. If there's one thing that I see from this pandemic, if you even want to call it a silver lining, is that mental health is at the forefront. Before it, unless you were impacted by mental health or you worked in the field, it wasn't on your radar. But now it really is. It's at the forefront. It's not even on the radar per se. It's at the forefront of life right now, and everybody is impacted one way or the other. So, that's one positive thing, if you want to say it that way. But definitely, it has put mental health on the map, which is a good thing.
You bring up an interesting point too, with folks with, like we've talked about things opening back up. Mm-hmm. People might be a little bit more apt to go overboard than they ever were before. And is there any, through CMHA, is there any sort of advice you guys are offering that way? I mean, I think people might just, if you haven't been out and had a party in 2 years, you know what I mean? Like, it might be a little bit busy out there in that field. And I still think we have to sort of reel ourselves back in, right?
Sure. I mean, everyone wants to get out there and get their life back. But, we're following public health measures, and we're encouraging everyone to follow public health measures. And you also, need to be at your own comfort level. I think I'm going to wear a mask in public areas for a while. And there is that return anxiety that everybody's facing, for example, we went to the show for Family Day yesterday, and it was packed, and my sister-in-law and my niece were saying, oh, no, nobody's physically distancing, and we're all, get back, right? So it's all going to depend on your comfort level. And remember what we've been through for the past couple of years, and we never want to get back to that. So I think you're going to see public health say, just proceed with caution, and that's the advice that we're going to give people as well.
Any last question? I know you're busy, you got to get back at it, but any advice for folks maybe really struggling with the anxiety of even going outside again? Because now they have to reintroduce into society. Is there some outlines that you guys might have, how to step out carefully so that you feel comfortable? Yes. Because what you brought up is a great point. We're not all going to rush to, a big event. I mean, just going to the store for some people is going to be traumatic enough, right?
Absolutely. Return anxiety is a thing. And the advice that we give is just be aware of your own comfort level. Take things slow, limit exposure. And, with any type of anxiety, you basically have to limit exposure, build up that exposure until you feel comfortable in that situation. So everybody will be at their own comfort level. I honestly don't think everybody's going to rush out and crowd and everything again. I don't think public health will really open it up completely like that. There'll be measures in place. And honestly, I think for the most part, people are still feeling a little bit anxious, and they're just going to go with their comfort level. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Baby steps, folks. That's what it takes. You got it. You got to step back in, and I know you're busy. I want to thank you for taking the time today, and I really wanted to explore that anger angle with you and just sort of get your thoughts on that, because I think that's we need to share that information with folks, and I appreciate you taking the time today to talk to me about that. Take care. We'll talk soon. Okay, Lill? Thank you, Dave.